Los Angeles, 1941. The city was busy with war preparations. Sirens were going off, and bomber planes were being built in factories. But underneath all of this, the army found something buried underground. They discovered a deep hole beneath a warehouse. They sent 20 soldiers down to explore it. What they found were tunnels that were not built by people. The walls were smooth, there were strange carvings on them, and bones were scattered everywhere in the darkness. Then they heard the sound of claws scraping. The lanterns they carried began to shake. Rifles were lifted up. Green eyes opened in the dark. It was not a patrol mission, it was a trap. Most of the soldiers never made it back. And the few who did come back promised to never tell anyone. This is because what lived under Los Angeles was not supposed to exist. And it might still be there, so before we continue, please make sure to like and subscribe to support the channel. Comment down below where you are watching from. Thanks. It was Los Angeles, 1941. The city was hot and busy like a motor with a cracked belt. You could smell oil, hot tar, and sea salt. Women wearing scarves and bright lipstick waited outside factory gates. Men in work clothes smoked cigarettes, spit, and went back inside to build airplane wings. They made bombers and fighters, machines made of metal with sharp edges. War was coming slowly, but you could hear it coming from far away. We practiced drills at the armory. We marched up and down, ate meals, cleaned our rifles, and slept. The radio gave us orders and news. Europe was on fire. Hawaii was just a rumor at that time. Our trucks drove along Alameda Street. The depot yard was shining like it was sweating. We had air raid drills at night. Sirens made moaning sounds like the city was having a bad dream. We turned off all the lights and looked up at the sky. We used blackout curtains. Half the city thought a flying airship would come and drop bombs on Hollywood. I was a corporal then. That was not much to be proud of. I was good at keeping time and good at keeping my mouth shut. My name does not matter. The names of the men I lost do matter. I still count them some nights. Their faces hang in the darkness like lanterns swinging. Top was our leader. He looked like a bulldog with a broken ear. He called us knuckleheads and motherless goats. But then he gave us extra food when he thought no one was watching. Our lieutenant was new. He was a young officer with clean boots and soft words, but he had a strong backbone. He listened to people. That is rare. I liked him. We loaded boxes. We checked fire extinguishers, fire hoses, and gas masks. We listened to rumors that people said were facts. Enemy submarines off the coast, saboteurs in the fish factories, grease on the stairs, nails in the tires. The usual rumors. What was not usual came in a plain envelope. The paper was smooth. The words were careful. The stamp was from the engineers. Not the ones who build bridges and dams, the other ones. The ones who asked you to go somewhere quiet and not bring a camera. The order was simple. Support a site survey beneath a warehouse near downtown. Bring lanterns. Bring rope. Bring the kind of men who do not talk too much. We were just soldiers. You tell us to go down a hole, we go down the hole. You tell us to dig, we dig. You tell us to forget, we forget. That is the job. A cold wind came from the river that morning. The sky was low and gray. It smelled like rain and electric wires. Trucks went east through a line of brick buildings and broken windows. The warehouse sat on a side street near the railroad tracks. There was no sign. A locked chain-link fence gate was there. A blue car with government license plates waited under a shelter roof. A man in a suit watched us from the shadows like a bored cat. Inside, the floor was dusty concrete. There were marks from old boxes and rat droppings like pepper. In the far corner, there was a square of newer boards. In the middle of that, there was a steel ring bolted into the floor. The ring sat around a hole 6 feet across. Air came up slowly and steadily. It smelled like the ocean at low tide and something else. Sulfur, burned matches, bad eggs. It made your nose scrunch up. We looked at each other but did not say anything. The man in the suit said, "Thank you for coming, gentlemen." He did not tell us his name. He said they had found an old tunnel during a remodel. He said the city was full of old tunnels. Bootlegger runs, service tunnels, flood channels cut by men who did not want their boots to get wet. He smiled, but his eyes did not smile. He said the engineers wanted to look, and could we please be the muscle? Top rolled his shoulders. "We can be whatever you pay for," he said. The suit looked at the lieutenant. The lieutenant nodded. "We will go see," he said. So we got our gear ready, rope over shoulders, lanterns, rifles, a couple of shotguns, the radio on a strap. We checked our knots and belts, we made jokes with flat voices. 20 of us, give or take. Men with names I still see on gravestones. Daniels, Lee, Peralta. Nick the cook with the broken thumb, who could skin a rabbit in 1 minute flat. Big Louie from Nevada, who never lost a wrestling match. My friend Harlan, who wrote letters home in neat tiny handwriting and never swore in front of a church. We set chocks under the trucks. We checked our shoelaces. We stood around the hole like kids at a swimming pool. Then we started going down. Before we dropped down, there were whispers. There always are. The guard who worked overnight had heard scraping sounds. He said it sounded like a rake being dragged over a slate floor. He said he saw a shadow move like it had a mind, and then it did not move. The foreman, who had supervised the remodel, said the workers refused to come back after they pried up the first boards. He said they had found a skull. He said it looked old. He said it looked wrong. He would not explain what he meant by wrong. In the mess hall the night before, one of the cooks told a story. The newspapers in the 1930s ran stories about a local crazy person who swore there was a city under the city. Gold maps, catacombs, lizard people. Everyone laughed. The maps were supposed to be shaped like an owl. The cook waved his fork and made a hooting sound. The men threw bread at him. But he did not laugh when he washed the plates later. I saw his hands shaking. Some stories stick to you like burrs. The lieutenant did not trust stories. He wore truth like a jacket, snug and plain. But even he kept looking at the floorboards like he felt a hum under his boots, like he could hear something that was not there. He rubbed a coin in his pocket. He did that when he was thinking. The soft clicking of metal on ridges. It was a lucky dime, he said. His father gave it to him when he left Kansas. I used to watch that hand and know which way his mind was turning. We had a sergeant from Oklahoma who had done river work. He squinted at the hole. He said the ring was new, but the hole was not. He spit. He said the draft of air meant a long run of open space, maybe a bigger chamber beyond. He said we would know more when we dropped down. There were birds nesting in the rafters, pigeons. They rustled and shifted and watched us with bright little eyes. One bird hopped toward the hole, looked down with its head tilted, and then flapped away in a hurry. Its wings made a hard sound. Men noticed. They said nothing. Men notice more than they admit. I pulled my straps tight. My palms were sweaty. I told myself it was just a hole. I told myself I had been in holes with worse things in them. I told myself to breathe like the chaplain taught us. In through the nose, out through the mouth. I tasted salt and dust. Someone coughed. Someone laughed too loud. The radio hissed and then settled. All right, Top said. Enough looking. We go down. We look. We come back. No hero moves. No wandering. You see? Something strange, you call it out. You do not poke it. Clear? Clear, we said. We went down into the dark. Lanterns swung and made the walls seem to breathe. Rope slid over our palms. The hole was cut clean, not some rough job. The stone was smooth with rings like someone had carved a throat for a giant. And I say stone, but it was not exactly stone. Some sections looked poured, like melted rock cooled in a mold. You see that in lava tubes. I saw a picture once, that same skin slick, shiny in places. In other places, it was carved with lines and swirls like fingerprints too big to fit any hand. We climbed past the warehouse smells, oil, mouse urine, mold, down to an air that did not belong to our world. It held water and metal and eggs and something old, something that had never seen the sun. We reached a landing 6 feet wide. The hole went on below, but there was a cut into the side. A hallway waited, black as a mouth. We stepped in and held our breath. The lantern light showed walls that were not brick. They were not sewer pipe. No seams, no rivets, just a curve that met itself like the inside of a bowl turned upside down. The floor had a faint pattern, more lines, spirals like something crawled there once when the rock was new and left its path like art. Harlan whispered, "This is not any utility tunnel." "Then what the hell built it?" Lee whispered back. More importantly, Top said, "What is in it now?" We moved in a line. The radio man stayed in the middle. The lieutenant walked up front and I followed his right shoulder. Our boots made damp thuds. The sound went away fast, swallowed by the curve of the walls. We walked for a while. Time got slippery. No wind, no motion, just our steps and our breath and the soft tick of the lantern parts. Now and then we saw marks, scratches on the wall not made by a shovel or pick. Claw marks, I would call them if I believed in claws that big. 3 lines together, deep. The edges caught the lantern light like little mirrors. At one bend we found bones. Not many. A scatter across the floor like white teeth, old and crumbly, some long and thin, some blunt. Something had chewed them. The ends were shiny and hollow. Nick the cook muttered, "It was a dog or a big rat." No one argued. No one believed him. Deeper in, the smell of sulfur got thicker. Our eyes watered. The hairs under my nose curled. The radio clicked and popped like it had ants inside. "Keep it close," I whispered to the man wearing it. He nodded, jaw tight. We came to a fork. One tunnel curved left, one curved right. The floor here had a dip like a bowl. There was a dark stain in it. The lantern made it shine. Not wet, just slick. Men stepped around it, careful not to put the soles of their boots into that mark. We did not say why. A scraping sound came up from the right-hand tunnel. Not loud, not close, like a rake way down a hole. The men stopped. The scrape stopped. We waited. It started again after a long minute, a little closer. The left-hand tunnel gave a soft breath like something exhaled a long time ago and forgot to finish. "Left," the lieutenant said. Slowly we went left. Another landing opened on top of a drop. The lantern showed a void down there. The light fell and found nothing. Something down there moved and the light ran off it like water. You ever shine a lantern on something slick and it throws your face back at you cut to pieces? That. The scrape picked up again behind us. Same distance. It knew how to keep space. "Eyes up," Top said. "We are not alone, we already knew. We passed carvings." Then the walls were not just smooth. They held shapes, spirals and circles and knife-like lines stitched together into something that looked almost like writing. Not letters, more like maps you could not fold. Some marks seemed newer than others, like someone had freshened them with a tool. The tool made a groove sharper than time. I saw something else in one swirl. A figure drawn like a child would draw it. 2 legs, 2 arms, long head, mouth like a beak. I blinked. The lantern danced. It was just lines again. My tongue tasted like a penny. My palms were slick. The scraping sound got closer. And then it stopped for good. We reached a chamber. The chamber spread out in a circle. The ceiling arched high like a church, with the steeple ripped off. Columns rose around the edge like the trunks of very old trees. The floor had that same ring pattern. In the center stood a low thing like an altar or a table. It was made from the same knot rock. Its top was carved all over with curves and cuts you could lose a finger in if you got careless. We made a ring without thinking. Lanterns held up, rifles pointed out, breath slow. The radio man knelt and checked his box. "I still got you," he whispered into it. A graveyard hiss came back. No voice. He shrugged, small. His eyes looked big in the lantern light. Rabbit eyes. 3 shapes stepped out from behind a column. I did not count my heartbeats. I counted the seconds between our breaths. There were not many. They were tall, 7, maybe 8 feet. Hard to say when your brain is trying to crawl out your ear. They were shaped like men who forgot how to be men. Shoulders, a body, 2 arms, 2 legs. But the lines were wrong. Too long here, too heavy there. The skin looked like rock that remembered being a lizard. Scales that caught the light and threw it back in wet chips. Eyes like a snake's but facing forward like a hunter's. Slits brighter than any lantern. A green glow that was not light so much as life. Their mouths were wrong too. Not like a crocodile's. More like you take a man's mouth and pull it back to the ears and pack it with knives. One tilted its head the way a coyote does when it hears something you do not, they hissed, not loud. A low gutter sound that rolled in the chest. Our lantern parts fluttered like that hiss sucked the air. The lieutenant did not scream. He did what he was paid to do. He said, "Weapons ready, very calm." Then he said, "Fire." We fired. The room shook with light. Muzzle flash painted the columns with lightning. Rifles cracked like dry boards. The nearest thing lunged. It moved fast and weird. Like a film cut wrong. 1 second it was near a column, next it was near my face. I fired again, the shot hit it in the chest. The bullet sparked. It made a sound like tapping on a bell. It did not stop. "Dang it," Peralta shouted. "It is bouncing right off." The shotgun did better. The first blast took a piece off its shoulder. A gray chunk spun and hit the floor and skittered like a crab. The thing hissed again and drew back, not from pain but from surprise. like we had broken a rule it did not think we knew. Then more eyes opened beyond the columns, dozens, maybe more, a slow bloom of cold green stars. They watched us the way wolves watch a line of cattle at night, patient, certain we would make a mistake because we were made of mistakes. I remember the smell then, deeper sulfur and something like crushed sage and the warm copper smell of blood. It was in the room and I could not tell whose. Back, the lieutenant said. Back by teams. Stay in the light. We stepped, fired, stepped. The thing stepped too. They liked the edge of the light. They licked it with their eyes. They did not like the shotgun, but they did not hate it enough to leave. The radio man spun dials. He whispered into the block, say again. The block spat back static, and a pop like a blown fuse. Something moved behind me, and the hair on my neck tried to rip itself out. Harlan went down with a cry that cut off. One long hand, three thick fingers, claws curved like black glass, hauled him into the dark between two columns. He kicked, he spit, he swung his rifle like a bat. The claws sank into his belly and made a wet sound. He screamed once more. The sound ended sideways like a door slammed. Then nothing. I went for him. Top grabbed my belt. No, he said. Soft, final, the kind of no that means you. We'll both die if you ignore it. I did not ignore it. I am a coward who lived. That is worse in some ways. It is why I get to tell you this and wish I could not. We saw a second man go then. Big Louie. He rushed the table in the middle like he would tackle a steer. One of the things slipped left, very clean, no wasted motion, and swept his legs with a swipe of its tail. I had not noticed tails. There were tails, old muscle that still remembered the ocean. Louis flipped, hit the floor alive, and was gone into a side passage like a rope pulled him. The lantern light cut off after 10 feet and showed teeth and claws and an arm, and then not even that. Move, Top barked, voice cracking. Move now! We moved back through the hall we had come from. The eyes followed. They did not rush us. They did not have to. We were in their house. The radio coughed and a voice finally came through. Say your status. It sounded far away, like talking through wool. Contact, the radio man said. Multiple unknown hostiles. We are. The rest got eaten by the tunnel. Bullets pinged off the walls and made angry bee sounds. One of the creatures got bored and reached in like a man grabbing a fish from a bucket. It missed me by inches. The claws scratched the floor and threw sparks like someone striking a flint for a campfire we did not want. We reached the landing by the shaft. We formed a huddle lanterns high. The lieutenant counted heads. He got to 12, then 13, then 14, then stopped. Where is Peralta? He asked. Peralta was gone. I did not hear him go. That is a bad thing to know about yourself. The dark can take a man and you will not notice because you are too busy keeping your own skin. You can make peace with it or not. I did not. I just learned to sit with it so it does not tear my face off every night. We hooked the rope fast. We did not bother with order. We went up in a rush. Boots kicking, belts catching, hands shaking. The lantern flame wobbled. Something climbed the wall below. Us. It moved like a gecko on glass. I saw its face 2 feet from my boot. My boot struck that face. The sole slid on scales and then caught on an eye ridge. The thing hissed like air from a truck tire. It did not fall. It blinked. A hand came up. Claws opened. Then Top leaned over and put the shotgun right into its mouth and pulled the trigger. The creature's head blew apart. Not like meat. Like a clay jar struck with a hammer. Chips everywhere. Wet stuff everywhere else. The body let go. It dropped into the shaft and bounced once with a sound I do not know how to describe except wrong. Far below something hissed back. Louder. Many throats. We reached the top. We rolled onto the warehouse floor like fish onto a dock. We stared at each other and did a count again. 13. I will not name who was missing by then. If I say each name, I will see each face. We will be here all night with the lantern turned low and no one will sleep. The lieutenant stood. He moved like an old man, though he was young. Seal it, he said. Not loud, like a prayer. Seal it now. The engineers were ready. They had been waiting on the word. That is the part that tells you someone knew more than we did. Charges were already set. The man in the suit watched us with a face like bad milk. Wait, I said.
I do not know why I said it. Maybe I thought the men we had lost would find air if we left it open. Maybe I thought something wanted us to hurry.
The lieutenant did not wait. He nodded to the engineer. Do it. They wired. We moved back. The suit covered his ears and ducked his head like the blast could erase what he had seen. The charges went off like a car crash, but bigger. The floor jumped. The pigeons rose in a whoosh. Dust came out of the hole, in a brown fountain. We coughed and spit. When the cloud thinned, there was no hole. Just a pile of broken knot rock and a ring bent like soft lead. We listened. Dust settled on our helmets. Somewhere a pigeon cooed like an idiot. No sound came from below, except the sound you hear when you tell yourself you do not hear anything. The lieutenant looked at us one by one. His face was made of angles. "We never speak of this," he said. "Not to anyone." He did not add or else. He did not have to. The suit stepped forward and said it for him. Soft and pretty, like a man offering a clean napkin. "Thank you for your service," he said. We left that warehouse with fewer boots marching than went in. It felt like the whole city noticed. The street looked at us. The sky looked at us. Somewhere a siren went off for an air raid drill that was not on the schedule, and we all flinched like dogs who were not beaten but knew what a stick was for. That is where most stories end, with the hole sealed, with the lie spoken, with the drinks poured that night and the names crossed out in a neat hand. But this did not end there. We got 3 days of quiet. During those days, the city acted like itself too hard. People laughed too loud. Women tied scarves too tight. Men smoked too fast. The radio said words about Europe and ships and convoys. The radio did not say anything about creatures under the city, because the radio never says what makes sense until it is too late. The second night, the guard on the warehouse said he saw lights in the cracks. He said he saw green. He said he heard scratching like nails at a door. He called the number the suit had given him. The suit did not pick up. No one came. The third night, a dog went missing from a yard on the next block. The man who owned it found a smear in the alley that looked like oil but was not. He hosed it down and used bleach. It came back. That same night, a man who lived 2 streets over woke to a sound like someone sliding a trunk across his floor. He went to look. The trunk had not moved, but there were marks on the floorboards. 3 long grooves. He moved out the next day without saying goodbye to the landlord. Top came to our tents in the dark. He did not light a lamp. "Pack light," he said. "We got a call." The lieutenant stood by a truck with its headlamps covered. He held a piece of paper. His shoulders looked carved out of soap. "We go back," he said. "Different access, not the warehouse. There is a concern about the sewer lines." "Those are not sewers," I said. I did not mean to speak. The words fell out. "I know," he said. "We go anyway." We rolled with 2 trucks. No markings, no flags. Just men in dull wool and boots that did not squeak. We had more shotguns this time, and 2 men carried the big flame tanks. "Burners," Top said. He patted one like a dog. He told the men carrying them to stand between us like saints. We did not bring lanterns. We brought battery lamps instead. The engineers said there were gases. They warned us a spark could put us on the roof. The men joked about wanting to see the Hollywood sign up close. No one laughed out loud. We stopped near the river where it bent under a street. A locked iron door waited under a bridge. The engineer cut the lock with a tool that looked like a gun that ate steel. He opened the door. A smell like rotten eggs and coins and old rain walked out to say hello. Inside was a service tunnel. This one was clearly made by people, brick, mortar, drips, that had a calendar of their own. It ran straight for a while and then sloped down to a round mouth. "Old storm works," the engineer said, quiet, as if the brick could hear. "Built on top of something older." "What something?" Top asked. The engineer did not answer. He did not know, or he knew and liked not saying better. We moved down. The lamp showed rust on the bolts, an old name scratched into soot. "Lou loves Mama." We stepped around puddles. The water there held oil colors that moved slowly and made my stomach tilt. At the round mouth, the brick stopped. The knot rock began. The curve of it ran with a smoother hand than any mason's. The lines carved there were deeper. There were more of them. A story on the walls. A snake eating a snake biting a snake. Some of the grooves were filled with a dark tar. It smelled like a funeral at sea. We heard the hissing then. Not our hissing. Not the hiss of a lantern. It came from down the throat. A breath in, a breath out, like something too big to fit in one body. "Lamps off," the lieutenant said. "Sir?" Top whispered. "Off." We killed the lamps. The dark sucked them into its teeth. Our eyes went big and then had something to look at. A green glow pulsed down the tunnel like a heartbeat. It came on and off, a slow, lazy thing. The glow did not light the walls. It lit the floor in a broken pattern like shining through a grate or scales or something with holes in it. The radio gave a little laugh of static like a child who wants to confess. The radio man muted it. "On me," the lieutenant said. We went. We saw murals farther in. You could call them murals. They were carved, then burnt black, then carved again. Figures too tall for any doorway. Heads like helmets. Eyes like almonds lit from behind. A river, a mountain, the sea rolling in where it did not belong. Houses drowning. Little human stickmen drawn like jokes. The tall figures waded through the flood and built domes underground and did not drown. Their hands had 3 fingers. Each finger was a knife. I looked at that story and felt sick, like I had eaten a penny dipped in oil. They were here when the water was where it was not, I said. Top did not answer. He did not love ghost talk. He believed in 2 things, gravity and orders. Sometimes the second beat the first, not always. We reached another chamber. Smaller, low ceiling, the air moved, not a lot, just enough to make your lips feel like paper. In the middle on the floor there was a grate. The glowing came from beneath it, the holes were shaped like almond eyes. The light pulsed up and you could see down a little. Something moved slowly, a roll and a flex like breath. I do not know what we looked at. A machine that was an animal that learned to be a machine. The heat off it licked our cheeks. To the left, an opening breathed cold. To the right, a narrow slit took the green light and made it into a blade. The lieutenant made his hands talk what his mouth would not. Left, 2 men with a burner. Me and Top took point. We slid along the wall like crabs. The scale of it drove me nuts. You could feel how each measure was wrong. Too big by inches, too small by a hair. Made for something standing like a man who never was a man. The hissing came again, closer. Then we saw eyes. They crawled along the wall like jewels on a necklace. The nearest head slid into view. I told my hands to bring the rifle up and they did, but too slow. It came for me with the kind of quiet run cats use when they mean it. Top hit it with the burner. The flame looked weak at first, like someone's cigarette in a high wind. Then the tank coughed and coughed again and fire ate the room. It licked the ceiling and then slid down. It found the thing's skin and loved it. I smelled meat and tar and hair and old fish all at once. The creature shrieked. It was not like any sound I had heard. It had words in it. Shapes of words. It said, or seemed to say, something like stop. Then it had no mouth and the words were just heat. They did not like fire. That was the first rule we learned. We also learned the second. Fire made them mad. They came through the narrow slit like smoke. Turned to bones. 3, 5, 7. My count broke and ran. The other burner lit. The men behind the tanks screamed at the heat and kept pouring it. The rifles cracked. The shotguns boomed. The air went gray with ash and white with smoke. The floor grew slick. The grate in the center glowed brighter like the thing below wanted to watch. One of them grabbed a burner man by the tank. Claws sank in. The man screamed but did not drop. He was a good soldier. He held that wand and he kept feeding fire into the face of the thing choking him. The creature's flesh blistered and popped like mud in a hot ring. The smell came back. The man sagged and slid out of his harness. The tank stayed in the claws like a prize. The creature lifted it to its mouth and bit. Teeth hit metal. The tank burst. You have never heard a sound like that. The room tore. Heat went like a ghost through me and took my breath with it. I lay on my back and watched sparks eat the air where I had been standing. The skin on my cheek bubbled like bacon for a second, then settled. The lamps blew. The only light left was green from below and the orange sag of the other burner, now lying on the floor like a dying snake. The lieutenant came through the steam like a man in a dream. He grabbed my collar. He pulled me into a side cut. Up, he said. His hair was singed, his eyebrows were gone. He smiled like a skull. Up now, Corporal. We ran. The tunnel we ran down had no right to be there. It was not on our map. It sloped up. It grew tight. The walls brushed my shoulders. The green light went behind and left only the memory of heat. The hissing did not follow, not right away. It had other work to do. It had men to eat that I left behind. That sentence sits in my mouth like a hot coin. We reached a small room with no carving, just smooth knot rock with a dome for a roof. In the center, a pillar grew from the floor to the ceiling like a rock formation that finally got promoted. It had holes where hands might go. That is how we found the secret of it. You put hands there and pulled, and the pillar moved. It turned. A section of wall slid aside. That is the kind of door you make when you have forever. The hole behind the wall took us up into cold air. Not a warehouse, not the river, a service crawl space under a hospital. White tile above, little green tiles under that and a checkerboard. The crawl stank of disinfectant and old breath. We heard shoes squeaking above us, the roll of a cart, a soft cough. Normality so strong it hurt. We crawled into a laundry room where a woman in a white dress folded sheets. She did not scream, she put a hand on her heart. "Jesus, Mary, and Joseph," she said. Very calm. "You look like heck." We did. We were gray men with burnt edges. We walked out through a side door and found the alley and gulped air like drunks. Over the city the sirens went again, not a drill. The wrong time of day, the wrong tone. People poured into the streets looking at the sky. I looked down at the curb and saw 3 long scratches in the concrete. I ran a finger along one, smooth as glass. New. We went back that night with more men and sealed the hospital crawl space. We used concrete, we used steel bars, we used a prayer, that is not a joke. The chaplain came and said the kind with Latin in it. The concrete set like a good lie. But the city now was a block of cheese with a family of mice. Seal one hole, they use another. We did not sleep those weeks. We walked in pairs, in 3s, in 5s. We checked pump rooms and bell towers and basements full of mops. We found marks sometimes. Claw grooves up the inside of a pillar. A smear where it should not be. A smell like warm iron in a field after rain. Once we found a man who had been a man. He lay behind a stack of crates. He was empty. That is the only way I can say it. He had all the pieces, but none of what makes them hum. We never learned his name. I gave him mine for one day so he would not be alone. Then I took it back and left him with a tag that read John Doe. I thought how cruel the world is to men who get no story. The papers were full of something else by then. Hawaii had burned, ships had burned, men had burned. War stopped being a rumor and became the only thing. That was luck, if you want to call it luck. The city could scream at the sky and not at the ground. We had cover. We had chaos. It is easy to hide monsters in a loud room. And then came the night of guns in the sky. They call it the weird night now. The night batteries along the coast woke up and shot stars at nothing. Ask some men, and they will tell you about weather balloons and nerves and shadows on fog. Ask me, and I will tell you about the ground shaking like something big rolled under it and eyes on the bluffs glowing green, then gone. We stood on a roof near the river and watched tracers climb and arc and die. The city lights flicked off block by block. The sirens made their long, lonely call. I felt the shape of the tunnels under my boots like veins under skin. I felt a pulse. The roof had tar bubbles that popped and smelled like a road in August. I wanted to lie down face to the tar and tell it I was sorry. The lieutenant joined me at the wall. He handed me a cigarette. I did not smoke then. I do now. He lit it for me with hands that did not shake. "They are not in the sky," he said. "They are under us." "I know," I said. "We are going back," he said. "How many?" I asked. "Enough." Enough meant 20 men again, new ones this time. The old ones were buried or moved to other assignments. "Clean belts," the suit had said. "New eyes." He had smiled when he said it. I wanted to put him down that shaft and let the dark do the kind thing it does to men who do not deserve faces. We did not go through the warehouse. We did not go under the hospital. The engineers had another map. It looked like a plate of spaghetti. "Here," the youngest one said, pointing with a pencil stub. "The old storm tunnel that never worked. It intersects. We think the line stops on the map, but not on the ground." We entered through a culvert drained almost dry. The smell of old rain. Trash caught on the grate like a dead rooster's tail. Rats watched us without fear. They belonged. We did not. The burners came with us again. Shotguns, rifles, a sledgehammer for luck. Top carried it. He said, "If the world will not break open, I will help it." We moved like we had learned. Slow, quiet, eyes up and down and on the corners where corners did not belong. We listened for the scrape. We heard it sometimes, far away. Then, not at all. The old storm line narrowed and then widened like a throat that did not want to swallow but knew it had to. We came to a wall built where the city got tired of paying for a tunnel that led to nothing. The wall was brick. We knocked on it with the sledge. It sounded like someone trying to lie. Top grinned. He swung. The first hit cracked a seam. The second popped 2 bricks out. After the third, some mortar fell with a sad sound like a sigh. Behind that wall lay the dark. The knot rock began again. We stepped into heat. We had a plan this time. Not a good one, but a plan. We would go to the heart, the green-lit great room, the heat engine, if that is what it was. We would plant charges. We would get out. We would drop the roof on their heads and make them dig like men. Maybe they would dig. Maybe they would decide the city above tasted like poison after all and go back to whatever sea dried and left them angry. We moved faster. The carved lines on the walls grew thicker. They crossed and recrossed like a net. In some places the grooves were filled with something that glimmered like mica. My skin crawled. I had the feeling if I pressed my ear to the wall I would hear a far song. Not for me. The great room loomed ahead, the glow breathing like a slow bellows. The heaters in our burner packs ticked. Sweat ran down my back and made a river down my spine. The lieutenant signaled halt. He pointed at the ceiling. The hinges of a trap. Another door. We did not touch it. We had seen too many of their tricks. He pointed to the center. He pointed to the Pac-Man with charges. The Pac-Man nodded and touched the straps like a man touches a cross. And then the eyes opened again. Not just a few, all along the walls, all around the grate, from the ceiling and the floor. It was like looking into the night sky and realizing all the stars stare back. The hiss rolled out and made my feelings sing. The lieutenant did not say fire. He said hold. The eyes watched. He took one step forward. He raised his hands, palms out, burners lower, rifles held but did not shoot. He spoke. We will go. We will seal. Leave the city alone. His voice sounded wrong in that place, thin. But the words did what words sometimes do. They changed the air. Something came up through the grate, not one of them. Bigger, different. It did not crawl, it rose. A head without a neck, not right. A crest like a crown of old bone. Eyes set too high. It stared at the lieutenant. Then slowly at top, then at me. I had the sick, dizzy feeling you get in church when you suddenly believe and you are not sure you want to. I wanted to fall. I wanted to kneel. I wanted to shoot. I did none of those things. I held my breath and counted the dings in the barrel band of my rifle. The thing made a sound, not a hiss, a layered voice like wind pushed through reeds. If you have ever heard a canyon talk when a storm gathers, you know the feel. I heard the shape of words in it. Old words, tired words. I heard this, we were here when you dogs had gills. I heard this, you break our roof, we break your towers. I heard this go. I do not know if those were the words, I know that is what I heard. The lieutenant lowered his hands. He nodded. He stepped back. Then the radio on the man behind me chose that moment to squawk something from some officer somewhere about boats in the channel and to scramble at once. The squawk stabbed the air. The eyes flared. The thing from the grate turned. It moved faster than thought. In stories, this is where someone brave does the brave thing and wins a little win even if he loses later. That is not how it went. The brave thing got eaten fast. The burners lit. Top had already started to pull the man with the radio back when the flame opened like a white flower. The room went to war. The hissing turned to screams. Claws hit stone. Teeth hit bone. We fought like gamblers with rent due. The Pac-Man ran to the grate. He slapped charges like a baker slaps loaves into an oven. He looked at me. I nodded. I covered him with fire that was not from my hands and bullets that came from a place below my brain. He finished. He pulled the wire. He yelled, "Go!" We went. What does running in a bad place feel like? I can tell you. Heat on your back like a hand pushing. Air that comes in with knives and goes out with smoke. The taste of old copper and regret. The sound of your friend behind you, and then not behind you. You do not look back. Not because you do not care, because you cannot carry the look and the man both. The Pac-Man fell at the bend. His boot slipped in a smear. He hit the wall with his teeth. A shape fell on him from above, claws first. His jaw was open to scream when the thing found his tongue. The scream got cut in half and left there. I fired into its face until the rifle clicked empty. The creature bled the color of old motor oil. It did not care. It cared when Top hit it with the sledgehammer. The sledgehammer did what a sledgehammer does. It forgot there were scales and put all the weight of a man with hate in his shoulders into the swing. The creature's jaw broke. It walked on. The Pac-Man did not. We reached the brick wall we had knocked through. We poured out into the culvert. The night air cut our lungs like early winter. The engineer waited there with a switchbox in his lap like a baby. He saw our faces and did not ask. He did what he was told. He closed the switch. The earth lifted. The culvert went bright. A dull, deep boom rolled through the city and made the pigeons rise. You have never seen so many pigeons. You have never heard a silence like the one that followed when the boom finished its work and the city remembered. It had a heart and started beating again. We lay on the gravel. We panted. We counted thighs and arms and fingers. The lieutenant stood and checked our count. He shook his head once. He sat down on the culvert lip and put his face in his hands. I had never seen him break a rule like that. Officers keep their faces on. It is what they are for. He let it slip. He put it back on after a minute. But I saw the crack where the light got out. We left. We sealed. The suit shook our hands with the corners of his fingers. He said the right words. He wrote the wrong ones later on official paper. A gas pocket. A jam. Some men lost their balance. Some men always do. And the city sort of slept. War took us. We went east. We went west. Some of us to islands, some to Europe. We carried our ghosts like we carried our packs. You can set either. Down. But not for long. I saw men die in jungles, and a few rise like enraged saints. I slept in mud, and on ships and with my eyes open. I did not forget the green eyes. Some nights I saw them in holes in trees, some nights in a foxhole black, some nights in the barrel of my rifle. I put the rifle down and my hands would not stop shaking. When the war ended, we came back. The city had new scars. Bridges, highways, concrete like a river turned to bone. The old warehouses were gone. New warehouses took their place. The hospital I crawled under got a new wing. The laundry woman retired. She raised parakeets and died in a chair with a book in her lap. The river kept pretending to be a real river in its new straight coat. It never fooled anyone. Top died with a hammer next to his bed. He fixed his own porch steps at 80. He put the sledge by his pillow every night for 30 years. He said the weight helped him sleep. He laughed when he said it, and then stopped and stared at me like a man who hears a train that still has not come around the bend. The lieutenant made colonel and then did not. There are ways the world pays back men who try to keep it honest. He got moved to a desk near a window that looked at parking lots. He never got fat. He walked every day at lunch. He carried a dime in his pocket and rubbed it so smooth you could not tell whose face was on it. He never married. He died standing, looking out a window on a day that smelled like hot rain. I worked. I drank sometimes. I got married once. It did not stick. I did not keep anything that was not tied to me with wire. The wire rusted. I sat nights with the radio on low and listened to baseball. The announcer's voice had a good hum to it. I would close my eyes and lay the diamond out in my head. I could watch the game and not see eyes in the outfield. Then one year, the ground shook hard. Freeways fell. Houses tipped. The news put numbers to it. They always do. A 7 or an 8 or some other word that means a lot. The camera showed a crack in the concrete down by the river. In that crack, for a second, I saw a curve that was not rock. Smooth, carved, and I saw 3 grooves beside it, long and slick like glass. I turned the radio off. I went for a walk. You get old, and you lose people in words and weight. You come to an edge where the world, which has always been too big, is finally a little too small. You find yourself wanting to go back to one bad place and see if it is still there. I walked to the warehouse street. The old warehouse was a parking lot. A diner sat where the brick used to sit. People ate pancakes where my men bled. I stood by the glass and looked at their plates. One of them looked up at me and smiled and nodded like I told them a joke. The radio behind the counter played a song about summer that did not know what winter was. I kept walking. I took alleys that smelled like bleach and onion and old sweat. I found a door under a bridge that had been welded shut a long time ago. The weld had crusts like an old scab. But near the hinge there was a scratch. 3 scratches, new. I put my fingers in them. They fit. They fit like finger holes in a bowling ball, if the bowler had hands too long for the lane. I heard something down there. Not a scrape, not a hiss. A slow pulse like a sleeping thing turning over so it can dream better. I stood for a long time. The city moved, cars sliding past. Jobs that were clocks and bosses that were clocks and little kids with lunches packed in brown paper bags with their names on them. The sun came out like a man who is late for a date and has one shoe untied. He did his best. Shadows went this way and that like dogs with opinions. The door was still a door. The scratches were still the same dark. My hand was still my hand and shook only a little. I set my palm flat, not on the scratches, on the steel. It was warm. I left. I went home. I put a glass of water on the table and watched the ripples. They were small. They were regular. They came and went like the breath of a big animal asleep in the underplace. Years turned around the table like crows around a lone cottonwood. The glass did not stop. Here is the truth. We did not beat them. We were let go. Fire hurts them. Noise wakes them. Sealing holes buys time, nothing more. So if you hear scraping under your floor, do not move. If your dog growls at the basement, let him. Do not open drains. Do not go looking. They are still there. Always will be. We survived because they allowed it. That is the only reason I am here telling you. So that is the end of our video. If we made it this far, make sure to hit like and subscribe. It really helps the channel and it is free. And if you want more terrifying encounters like this one, check out the other videos on screen right now. Thanks for watching and stay safe out there.